The author is a traveler at heart. He talks a lot about the 54 countries he's visited in his lifetime, and I think that number would have only grown by now. This book is more a mental field note, than a linear story. It's a collection of essays and thoughts. And in one chapter, he'll be talking about a tip he can give you to manage your life. In the next one, he goes on to something very different, like an anecdote that he had in San Francisco, and then he will move on to something altogether different in the next chapter. And ultimately, therefore, it is about what you take out and not what the author wants to tell you. And that's how the book is designed. That here's my experience, you take out what you want to take out. I took out 7 things, and that's what I would love to take you through. The first thing that really resonated with me back then and does even now is be the bison, or like I like to say, be the Batman. The story goes that in Montana, when the storms come every year, most animals instinctively run away from the storm, right? In doing so, they don't avoid the storm. They catch it a bit later, and they are already tired by the time the storm hits. Bison, on the other hand, is the only species that moves towards the storm, right? It walks into the storm with the almost, evolutionary instinct that you'll meet the storm sooner and get to the other side sooner. This is a scene from Batman v Superman where, Bruce Wayne heads into the peril caused by General Zod and Superman. This really helped me back then, at a time when I was feeling very helpless. I felt that, it's something maybe I need to take the challenge head on and get to the other side. And I did. I've landed 2 very interesting jobs after that because I was able to do a good job in that organization. The second very interesting sort of aphorism he talks about is, you're not an ice cube. So he says, imagine an ice cube having the power to speak, and you ask it, hey, ice cube, tell me a bit about yourself. It will say that, well, I'm solid, I'm cold, and I can't move, and I lay in the refrigerator the whole day, and I can't do much. You take it to the river and show it the river, and it says, yeah, the river is water. Water is different from me. It can move fast. I'm not like water. I can't do that. You show it the clouds, and it says, yeah, clouds are fluffy and light, and they're fearless. They float around. I can't do any of that. And yet, if you drop this ice into the ocean, it will melt and realize that it was always part of this ocean. And inside the ocean lies the capability to, sustain so much of life. Then it evaporates, becomes a cloud, and realizes that, hey, I can be the cloud too. I was all of this all the time, just that I didn't realize. Now, I'm sure there's a huge Vedantic point here, but the way it really helped out for me in a very practical way, not just a philosophical way, was when after 17 years in advertising, I got an opportunity to work at Razorpay in marketing. I was, obviously a little worried. I was doubting myself on whether I could do it. Because I had in my mind, I was the ice cube. I was the strategic planner in an ad agency. And I wondered if I could be anybody else. Till I did an interesting exercise goaded by a friend of mine who said that write down all the strengths that you have as a planner in an ad agency. When I wrote that down, I realized that these are skills I can transfer anywhere else. So I think all of us are limiting and chaining our strengths into the proverbial ice cube that we think we are. But those strengths can be used anywhere else, and that can take care of a lot of your anxieties and a lot of your self-doubt, if you could think of it that way. The third one is find your marham. So apparently, like a lot of the anecdotes from the book are his travels, and he goes to Dubai and sees this bustling city, right? Emerging out of the desert. The skyline is full of cranes. So he takes all of that in, and it's the typical hurly-burly of the city. And in the evening, he's taken to this place, a desert camp outside Dubai called Marham, which is very different, which is suddenly silent, right? Where you light a fire in the night when it gets cold, and it's just peaceful. And he says there's an analogy to be drawn here that all of us in the hurly-burly of our life, which is like Dubai, need the marham also. You need an activity or a place where you can find your peace. For me, unfortunately, at the time when COVID hit, it was motorcycling, and that was something I couldn't do. I used to feel very much at peace hitting the highway on my motorcycle. Interestingly, I found it in a very childlike activity. My son had a lot of painting books and he had a set of crayons, and I used to just color them like a child. And that became my marham for the time. It gave me a lot of peace. It gave me the pause in my life that I needed. And I call it the 1-5-10 framework. Credits go to Gopi Kallayil. But it's a very interesting one because what this book suggests is a very different approach, right? It says first start with one purpose. He says find out what you find the most happiness doing, and find a larger good that happiness can bring. So if you love to write, what is the larger happiness that your writing can bring, or the larger purpose that your writing can serve? That's your purpose. Nothing too complicated, right? Find what's your passion and find the larger impact of your passion. Then he says, boil this large purpose into 5 priorities for your life. What will you spend 80% of your life doing? Right? Let us say health is important, travel is important. So one purpose, 5 priorities that help that purpose. And he says that you should spend 80% of your time doing this. The 20% is the tax you pay to live the life that you want. Right? It's a very interesting way of looking at it. And then he says on a daily basis, to support these 5 priorities, what are the 10 things you will do? And his own list is very grounded. It talks about proper sleep, proper eating, good exercise, work. I found this really, really interesting and really holistic. And I'm still, trying to imbibe this in my life. I have like 5 or 6 practices that I do every day. Number 5 that I learned is a very interesting thing called the outsourcing formula. We have a lot of things to do already, and in that Saturday that you have to run around and get groceries, clean your car, and many other things, right? Running about the home, getting urban company to fix something in your kitchen. He's got a simple formula for this. He says, take your salary divided by 2,000, which is roughly the number of hours we all put in. Know your hourly rate, right? Your hourly worth, what each hour of your life is worth. Now look at the task in hand. Is it your passion or is it your expertise? If it's neither your passion nor your expertise, find somebody who will do it cheaper. That's how you outsource your life. The 6th thing he talks about is the power of 1-minute habits, right? And here the principle he talks about is consistency more important than, adherence. A lot of times we think I need to jog every day, but if you can't jog 30 minutes every day, then you feel like you've broken the habit. He says, don't worry about that. Your brain looks for consistency. If on a particular day you're not able to jog for 30 minutes, jog for 1 minute, jog for 2 minutes. If you can't meditate every day, take 5 minutes between 2 meetings, just meditate. The last thing I've learned is sleep your way to the top. Now, for a long time in my own life, it's not what it sounds like, right? In my own life, a lot of times I used to feel fatigued to the extent of me wanting to sort of quit the corporate world because it's just too fatiguing. And I used to think it's the amount of work I do. I never thought it's the amount of rest I take that may be leading to my burnout. And, as we grow up, we also, have very little respect for sleep. I had very little respect for sleep because as a student, you're supposed to study through the night. As a parent, you have to wake up early in the morning and send your kids to school. If you're in the corporate world, you need better. If you're in an ad agency, you have a pitch in the coming weekend, you burn through the nights, right? So you develop scant respect for sleep. It's something that you have to do 4 or 5 hours and get through with it. And it's basically taking time away from what you should be doing otherwise, right? And I realized that's not so. Sleep is actually the bedrock of everything else. A good night's sleep makes you feel energetic and you can do a lot more with the rest of your day. Those are the 7 things I learned. And I'm pretty sure that if anybody else reads this book, they will get 7, 14, 21 different lessons because that's the way the book is structured. Thank you.